Welcome back to Metta Monday. My name is Sydney. I guess you can consider me your host. I hope that you're having a beautiful Monday so far. I know sometimes that Monday can be a challenge. I know sometimes it feels like Monday can feel like you've put your best foot forward. So, no matter where I'm meeting you out today on your journey of the beginning of your week, welcome and thank you for tuning in and deciding to meet me where you're at. And I just want to give you a little bit of a celebration for deciding to tune in and check in with yourself. That is my sole driving purpose of Metta, is to allow you 20-30 minutes to just have a space to check in, see how you're doing, allow some tapping into your inner world, and just seeing how you are and being able to realize and recognize if you're giving yourself that compassion that you deserve. So that brings me to a refresher on what metta means. Metta, metta. Metta means loving kindness. And so, in the context of this episode, of this show, if you will, my sole purpose, my plan is to cover compassion for yourself and others and what that looks like in practical form that we can apply to our lives. Thank you so much for dropping in. It's been 3 weeks now. I've taken 3 weeks off of filming and posting episodes, and I tried to post an episode last week. I had filmed, I recorded, and I sat with that 30 minutes. And while I was editing it, I picked it apart. It was 30 minutes when I first filmed it. And then when I went back to edit, I tried to just edit my ums or any kind of filler words so that I'm not wasting your time. But I found myself editing a lot out, like 15 minutes worth. And I kind of sat with that and I was like, that's not what Metta is about. Like, that's literally the opposite of what I am trying to hold space for myself. And if I'm not showing up truly and authentically, I'm doing myself a disservice and you a disservice of what compassion for yourself truly means. Because in that moment, I picked myself apart and I was trying to make it seem, I don't even know. I'm not even going to over intellectualize it, but I was definitely picking it apart. I was allowing the perfectionism to take over, allowing this people pleasing narrative to take over, and I was only willing to put myself out there so far, and that's just not what Metta is. I want to show up with real life, true stories from my human experience, share them with you, pick them apart, probe at them, and see where we can throw compassion in there to move forward with our lives in a manner that truly gives us the grace, the love, the support, and the care that we deserve so that we can apply that to the relationship we have with ourselves and then allow that to expand beyond us and then just find that, oh, wow, I'm giving compassion to other people solely from my practice of giving it to myself. So here I am today. With all that being said, I want to be able to be vulnerable with you in a way that we can relate more deeply so that what I'm sharing with you from my human experience, you can apply it to the context of what's going on currently in your life. And we can work together to figure out what we want to add into our life practice to deepen our awareness, deepen our capacity, fill our cup more, love ourselves more, meet ourselves, and all those things that we don't technically get the time to be intentional with when we're working, when we're taking care of others, when we're being the best mom, the best dad, the best employee, the best sibling, the best of all of these different roles that we play in this life. It just doesn't leave much time for us to work on what's going on within. And so my hope is that when we get together on these episodes, we hold that space with one another. So just a little check-in for what Metta is. That's all I'll say about that. Why have I not posted in 3 weeks? What happened? Let's talk about it. Let's dive into it. So being completely brutally honest, was the last time that I posted. It was right after Thanksgiving, and we spoke on that, touched on that. And after Thanksgiving, soon after, I had experienced having to put my cat down. And grief is a really intricate emotion. And through that experience, my partner and I had to make a decision to euthanize our cat. And it was a really hard decision. I won't get into like the long version of it, but our cat, our first pet together, the cat was mine, and then we moved in together. The cat began to be ours. The cat fell in love with her more. Well, I won't say more, but they cuddled more than than me and the cat were cuddling. But she developed, our cat Maleficent, who y'all met on episode 1. She developed a complex version of diabetes. And this treatment would have meant hospitalizing her quite often and injections of insulin every 12 hours. And that's something that me and my partner were willing to do, injections every 12 hours, even if it meant a huge life change for us. But the hard part was the hospitalization. And our cat just would not have, she did not like going to the vet already. And I realized that I would have been making her quite miserable and keeping her here solely for me. Maleficent was a huge part of my healing with anxiety. She quickly became my emotional support animal, unbeknownst to me. And her little purr would really soothe the anxious sensations when they would come up. And just seeing her little face made me happy. And we developed this relationship over time together. And of course, I wanted to keep her, but we had to make the really hard decision of putting her first and allowing her sweet little body to rest. And the emotions that flooded me after that and in that moment of having to see the life leave her sweet body, I was not ready for those. And nothing prepares us for this big emotion of grief, right? Like, we know it's inevitable. And death comes in so many different ways. And what I didn't realize was that in all of the grieving that I've done in my life, I had not sat with my own grief. I had made a lot of the chapters of my grieving about other people that loss had affected. and showed up for them, was there for them, nurturing them, but I never actually sat with my own emotion of grief. And so this was the first time, I'm 30. This was the first time that I really held space for just me to experience that grief. My partner allowed me that. It was the first loss that I've had in my life where somebody else was not there for me to distract myself with being there for them. And carrying that big emotion was extremely challenging for me. I'm sure that you've also experienced what grief feels like. So now, as I'm talking about this, maybe even you notice that there are sensations that are happening in your body. Maybe your throat is tensing up because your mind is thinking about who you've lost. Maybe your eyes are getting watery and tight with mine as I cry also, and we experience this emotion together. I appreciate you for feeling with me deeply in this moment, but it was a lot to carry. That experience of holding those emotions of that grief also touched the burnout that I was already experiencing. So to hold burnout, to carry the burnout from overworking and overproducing myself from the season of doing a lot of things in a really heavy year, on top of carrying the grief and that grief that I experienced with Maleficent, opening Pandora's box of a bunch of grief that I've compartmentalized over years, was so much for me to carry. The 3 Sundays that had to come up between the last episode and this one, I felt myself at a loss of words, and I didn't even know how to put everything that I was experiencing into a pretty little box to deliver to you. I say pretty little box because of the performing and impressing that we learn in our human experience, putting our best foot forward to present ourselves to others. And maybe you can relate to that. But I also was struggling just in general with opening up and being vulnerable. And I said, you know what? Me taking up this space to not film and edit and post Metta is actually a huge act of compassion for me as a perfectionist, as just a very type A people pleaser, to understand that with saying no, with saying I'm not going to film and put out an episode and that's okay, was in fact me saying yes to myself. And that within itself was Metta. And what was hard to walk away from was the fact that I had made a decision to um, film every Sunday so I can edit it and post it for you Monday to watch. And learning and being disciplined to this practice so that you have an episode to watch every Monday. And so that I can share all these beautiful things that I want to share with whoever is willing to sit with me. And as I walked away from that agreement, that plan that I made for myself, I realized I didn't plan to lose my cat. I didn't plan to be in burnout. These are just these things that happen in life, these ebbs and flows that catch us that we can't predict. And that's part of this life experience. And once I was able to accept that, I was able to fill my cup up. And if we're not holding space for ourselves, if I'm not holding space for myself to be able to fill my own cup and love on myself, care on myself, tend to my big emotions as they arise, how am I supposed to expect, or how am I supposed to think that I can also take care of others? If my cup is empty and I'm always running on empty, how can I think that, expect that I can fill up other people's cups? I have to be able to fill up my cup, know that I'm okay, love on, support, be there for, care for myself so that I can be that version of me who loves caregiving to other people and being that shoulder for other people, being a crutch to other people when they need that. And as a helper, because that's a little bit in my personality, as a people pleaser, because that's a bit in my programming, as a perfectionist, because that's sprinkled in there too, I'm learning that I can be more of a service to others when I'm willing to take care of myself, because that means that I can show up at like 80, 90, 100% rather than 10, 20, 30% of a very spread thin version of me. And that actually is a disservice to others to think that if I think that I can spread myself so thin, saying yes here, saying yes here. Oh, you need that? Let me take care of it for you. Saying yes here. What next thing you know, I'm not going to yoga and spending an hour of with myself on the mat and stretching my body. I'm not taking care of my journaling life. I'm not being intentional with my self-care practice. I'm maybe not sleeping adequately because I've run myself ragged with putting so many things on my plate and spreading myself thin because I'm saying yes way more than I can. So my point is, thank you for receiving that. I know that was a lot, but my point is, how can we get more comfortable with saying no, trusting that that no is going to bring an abundance of yeses? And how can we discern when we're coming up to that space where we are burnt out so that we can step back and notice how we are feeling and pull out which tool out of the toolbox we are ready to receive so that we can fill our cup. When I say that, what my toolbox specifically looks like is expression through music and dance, yoga. I've said this many times. Breath work, taking time to meditate, taking time with my plants. Maybe I go get a new plant and repot it into a pot that I really like, and I start watering it and watching it grow. Whatever your self-care practice looks like of slowing down for you, that is your toolbox. All of those things you've learned about yourself, that is your self-support system. And what I'm wondering is, or what I'm hoping is, what I would like to come into more awareness of is when I need to turn to that toolbox and be like, which one of these things is going to help me get to a space where I am able to show up as me again? And sometimes that tool literally is simply rest. And so I had taken the past 3 weeks to do a lot of resting, to do a lot of inquiring with myself on what I need moment to moment as those ebbs and flows and those waves of grief hit me full force. And everybody has their own relationship with grief. So you know what I mean when I say the waves were coming and it was hitting full force. While going through that emotional pain, like I mentioned in previous episodes, I think it was episode 1, my body is experiencing a lot of pain in the winter seasons. So in the past 3 weeks, I also took a lot of time to explore what's happening in my shoulder and in my neck, and going down into my arm, my bicep, my elbow, and my forearm with a lot of tightening and painful sensations. I committed to, and I'll talk about this more in the new year, of how much these things cost, because sometimes it can seem like to take care of yourself or to be healthy, it can be an extremely expensive practice. And there might be truth there. But I do want to normalize talking about how much these things cost to be able to take care of your body and support it in the way that it deserves to be supported, because health is wealth. I really, truly believe that. And so in the past 3 weeks, I committed to seeing my chiropractor every week, going to get dry needling from a physical therapist who is very sound to neurology and the nervous system and what's going on in my radial nerve that is pinched. So I got the dry needling. I got lymphatic drainage from my friend Megan, who I love so much. Shout out to Megan. She is in Austin, Texas. Incredible, beautiful, holistic practice with the best salves and balms for your body. I will tag her on this post so that you can see her page and figure out how you can get onto her massage table. I love you, Megan. But yes, the needling, the chiropractor, the lymphatic drainage, and doing my own functional movements, which you can find on my wellness page on Instagram. Very practical practices that you can do at home. You don't need a gym to be able to take care of your body. And also, I was doing the yoga. And so, in this past 3 weeks, while emotional pain was arising, physical pain was also arising. And there were some days where the only thing that I was experiencing throughout my whole day was pain. And I noticed that when I would get into conversations with people, it was a really hard time for me to be intentional and be an active listener. And that was really hard for me. If you know me personally, you know that I really appreciate conversation and being able to hold space for others and listen. And there were times that I found myself in a conversation with someone, I can see their face, I can see their mouth moving, and I couldn't hear anything that they were saying. It was not landing with me. The only thing that I was experiencing was the pain in my shoulder, was the pain in my back, the pain in my arm, and the hurt and the pain in my heart. And that was a sign for me that I was really in burnout, and I really needed to take a step back, not film, be there for myself, whatever that meant, moment to moment. And this one was hard, but not participate in traditional Christmas with my family. And so, segueing to the second topic and the last topic that for this episode, so that I can respect your time and keep this short, but obviously not light, but short. To not be seeing many people one-on-one intentionally, like my friends. and to really go into this hibernation mode with myself, where I was really only leaving the house to teach yoga at my classes, receive yoga, and receive the other wellness routine that I had went into and committed to for this pain. And to eat with my partner, because she knows that going out on a dinner date really lifts my spirits. It was really hard for me. It was hard to sit with the fact that that made me feel really selfish to show up for just me. And it helped me to recognize how much of my life I've been so used to giving to other people and showing up for other people. And what a beautiful thing. What a beautiful thing. I'm very thankful for. And I'm ready to give that to myself more and see what that can do for me in my life practice. And as I bring this up, this is important to me to share because we tend to leave ourselves behind. And even as we show up for ourselves more, sometimes it can, sometimes we can think that we're being selfish. Or if we start moving differently, maybe a friend says we're being selfish or feels like we're being selfish and that we've ghosted them or that we're not showing up for them. And that, I mean, part of that is, it's part of life. There comes those chapters where you got to be your best friend, your driving support, your the person that is in your corner rooting you on. Like sometimes you get that calling and that itch of, oh, I really got to lean on myself in this chapter. And that's a huge calling. And it's a calling that keeps on calling till you answer. And I had to pick up the phone. I had to answer. I couldn't ignore it anymore. I was far too deep into burnout. So my partner and I made the very hard decision that we would not spend Christmas in the traditional way, meaning with my family, like we have, doing the around the Christmas tree, exchange the gifts, have the lunch, watch the football game, have the dinner, connect with, a room of 15, almost 20 people. It felt like my battery needed something different. And we made the very hard decision together of going on a solo getaway, just her and I and our two dogs, Sandy and Blue. And it was beautiful. And I'm thankful. The process was hard to tell my parents, hey, Bailey and I are going to spend Christmas just us. It felt like I was doing something wrong. It felt like I was about to get grounded. It felt like I was disappointing them and hurting their feelings. And maybe some of that is true. Maybe their feelings did get hurt and maybe they were disappointed because for 30 years I've been with them on Christmas. I'm their first child and we have a very close-knit relationship. My parents and I, my family and I, because my brother too, we are very close. And so it was really hard to say, hey, Christmas this year looks very different for me. I need to fill my cup. I need to recharge my battery. I need to connect with my partner. Part of getting into the burnout was the fact that I have a business, my wife has a business, and this year those businesses really took off, maybe a little bit bigger, quicker than we were expecting. And we are both very type A and very much perfectionists. And we became business partners. If you also are an entrepreneur or work with your partner on a lot of projects in general, You know what I mean when I say that we were doing quite a bit of problem solving every single day and hadn't recognized that we weren't just connecting and having the pillow talk. We were coordinating and planning and solving and doing the runaround. And we hadn't really been intentional with just one another. Even though it was hard to deliver that message of not doing Christmas with my family, and maybe you had to deliver that message too, so you know what I mean, when like I say that guilt and that shame had come up, like you're doing something wrong. And my parents took it very well, and I'm thankful. But some of my friends who also had to make the same decision, they were sharing with me that their families took it really hard, and it was hard for them to carry their parents' big emotions that sounded like, why don't you want to spend Christmas with me? Or you never come back for Christmas. Well, my friends' kids, they always come for Christmas. And the guilting and the shaming in whatever way, shape, or form, that's hard to carry. And to be honest, with a lot of compassion for our parents in this moment, still, it's not our responsibility to carry other people's emotions, even our parents. We can hold space for other people's emotions, absolutely, but it's not our responsibility to carry that for them and walk them through it and put ourselves in a position where we're going against what we need to make sure that their emotions are protected and their needs are met. My friend Mel, who I love so much, who will be on this show at some point, love you so much, Mel. She had told me, we were chatting about this through text, that it was really hard for me to tell my parents that I wasn't going to be with them on Christmas. She said this is really hard stuff to navigate, and no one walks us through how to navigate it, but to choose guilt over choosing resentment. And I sat with that. I chewed on it for a little bit. I'll say it again. Choose guilt over choosing resentment. So, in the context of this situation, I woke up on Christmas Day at the Airbnb on our getaway, feeling extremely guilty that I wasn't waking up in my parents' house to spend Christmas with them. And maybe this was your experience too. And at some point, that guilt, I was able to understand that I didn't have to feel like that. And I could remind myself I really needed a break where I could spend a few days where there was nothing for me to do, no dish, no food to serve, no dishes to wash, no hypervigilance to what every single person's need was throughout the day, no excessive tissue and wrapping paper to wrap and then unwrap and then clean up, no decorations to take down, no holding space for 20 people to take place. I didn't have the bandwidth for that. And I had to be honest with myself and honest to my family, because if I would have, in fact, participated with doing all of those things, I would have been at that 10%. And what 10% looks like for me is frustrated, agitated, not loving, like zero loving kindness, not much compassion. You could tell that my brain isn't present. I'm not present. And there's a little bit of an edge there that's heavy for other people to be around because they can feel that energy. And that's not what Christmas is for or about. And my battery just would have went lower and lower. And I could have possibly resented them. I could have went into my mind and said, this is your fault that I still am burnt out, that I don't want to be here. And I didn't want to get these gifts. I didn't want to wrap them. I didn't want to clean. I didn't want to do the big dinner or hold space for conversation. And it's your fault, and resent them. I mean, there was just no need for that. I knew that the overwhelm had hit me weeks prior to Christmas, even before Thanksgiving, if I'm being honest. And with that awareness, once you see something, you can't unsee it. Once that awareness came to me, I had to do something about it to take care of myself. And so I chose very momentary guilt. That was really in the narrative of my own mind with the people pleasing. Guilty that I'm not there doing the usual Christmas with my family, even though they completely understood that I was worn out and I needed a break. And it just so happened that my partner had days she could take off from work, from her other job that she maintains while being a business owner. It just so happened that she was off just enough days for us to take a mini getaway vacation. And my parents understood that when I told them that and expressed that to them. So that guilt, it was, it's part of the programming with pleasing others and not wanting to disappoint them and wanting to hold space for their big emotions for them. That momentary guilt that peeled away, I chose that rather than pulling myself, forcing myself to participate in the calendar of what we're told we're supposed to do in this holiday season. Everybody has their own opinions about that, but I didn't decide to participate. And with that decision being made, I didn't resent my partner, my parents, my family. I was able to take care of me. And I feel so much lighter than the past 3 weeks of my life. All of that to say, my point being, how do we show up for ourselves? What is your relationship to yourself? And are you building an intimate relationship with yourself where you're able to plan for your future self? Are you able to make conscious decisions in this moment that are for your future self, even if that's a week away, 2 weeks away, 3 weeks away, a month away version of yourself? How can we make decisions now to set that future self up for success and set ourselves up for relief? In this life, there are a lot of ways that we're being pulled to do and to be. And there's a lot of timeline with like, I need to be married at this time to my person who is like, oh my God, dear John, and the most romantic movie ever. Like, we're just a match made in heaven. I need to be married to this person. We need to be having the kids. I need the beautiful career and job. And all of these societal pressures that we're under, that's a lot of pressure on top of wanting to be the best version of ourselves every day as we rise and wake and go to work and be around people. Oh, God help us all. And also participate in the calendar events that come up as the year goes along. Wherever you're at today on this Monday, I want to acknowledge that the holiday season, even starting at Halloween, however you decide to spend your Halloween, if there's a lot of movement in that of socialization, and then going straight into Thanksgiving, and then segueing straight into Christmas, and then the reflections of the new year, that's a lot of every which way to be pulled and turned and flipped. And we're just like, whoa, like it's a whirlwind, and we're pulling this body around to arise to all of these occasions and participate. And some people, I'll give it to you, you are spot on with the time management, organization. You're hitting the ground running in September, planning ahead to take care of yourself through those things. And that's wonderful. That is a beautiful practice. I applaud you. That's not everybody's truth. Some people are like, I am happy that I made it with a shower and fully clothed, and I am here. This is what I got. And that's okay too. And I've now at 30, I've decided to be more honest with myself and say, that's a lot for me. It's a lot for me to go through the Thanksgiving, go through the Christmas, go through the New Year, and pretend like I am A-okay, because it's a lot of movement. It's a lot of movement. And if you feel that way too, I'm with you. And moving forward, how can we take care of ourselves? Whether that's plan ahead starting in September or October, if that's not realistic for you, how can we stand sturdy and grounded in our ability to show up and voice our emotions and say, hey, I'm not going to be able to make it for Thanksgiving, but I'll see you on Christmas. Or, hey, I'm not going to be able to make it for Christmas, but I'll absolutely see you for Thanksgiving. And feel good about it, and not shameful and not guilty. And even if those emotions rise up, can we acknowledge that they've come, process them, and make it to joy that and gratitude that we decided to have some grace, exercise grace for ourselves in being honest. Just being honest. It's a lot. Everybody's feeling the holiday burn. And we participate in it every year. It's not a surprise. We participate every year. Some people, sorry. I participate every year. Not everybody participates every year. And if there are any suggestions, or you want to share what you do for Thanksgiving and Christmas, please put them in the comments. I've been wanting to explore different traditions and different ways to show up rather than spending a lot of money, maybe more money than you're ready to spend, and then starting January off trying to catch up financially. Because let's just be honest, every single one of us has a different relationship with finances and how much money we're willing to spend, and how whatever everybody has like this magic number of what makes them feel the most secure to see in their account, that makes them feel safe and makes them feel good and makes them feel secure, especially this year. Like, the economy's going through a lot, right? And not even going to get into that day. I'm not going to get into that today. We can unpack that in another episode. But my point being, it is a lot. It is like a 60-day window of the full year that we spent, or we are expected to spend, a lot of money within compared to the rest of the year. And for some people, that can really mess with your mental health, because as we all know, money is our lifeline in the way that this world is set up. Like, it's how we take care of ourselves. It's how we get our needs met, right? No matter how much money you make, everybody is spending money. And it seems that the more money you make, the more money you find yourself spending. And all of it is relevant for whatever social economic status you are from. Everybody has a relationship with money. And so how can we find different traditions for the holidays that don't include buying 20 gifts, and spending $2,000, $3,000, $4,000, whatever that looks like for you. We participated in Secret Santa this year, and we're going to do a gift exchange for the new year. My wife and I are hosting New Year's at our house. My family will come over, my aunt and uncle, my cousins, and we will host just like we hosted Thanksgiving. And it'll be like New Year's and Christmas all put together, and we will do our Secret Santa gift exchange. And I'm excited for that. And my cup is full for that and ready to participate and prepare the dinner, make the dinner, do the toast. We do a toast with like Welch's grape sparkling juice, um, and do a toast with the kids, and do the beans, the black-eyed peas. Like, we'll do that this year. We're going to incorporate that. And so I'm really excited, and I feel recharged and reset. And I know that that is solely because my partner and I decided to take a step back from Christmas and let Christmas just look different this year. And that doesn't mean that Christmas next year won't be back to the traditions that my parents laid out. But also, as we bring children into the world, if we decide to do that, will we want to change up those traditions? Is that something that you're thinking about? What will your traditions that you decide to take within the years to come, like what will those look like? Have you taken the time and the space to map some of those things out? And if you haven't, that's okay. And if it's a thought that's come up in the moment, maybe when you're driving to work or when you're at work, and you want to give it more space, I invite you to do so. Journaling has been huge for me, even if it's on your phone in the notes app. Let that be where you have your check-in with you. If you didn't like what Thanksgiving looked like for you, if you didn't like what Christmas looked like for you this year, what could it possibly look like next year? And even if you don't follow up with that, that's 365 days from now. Maybe you don't follow up with this plan, but it is a nice exercise to sit with yourself, be intentional, and say, I didn't like that and I want to make a change. And that's okay. Take up that space. Or I loved how this looked this year and I want to stick to this. And it's a 365 days. You don't even have to be attached to that. You can throw it out the window next year. But the purpose being, how can we just check in honestly, arrive honestly, and be there for ourselves in an honest, in a real way, absent of how that affects others, not worrying about how that touches the emotions of other people. How can we walk away from our decisions being solely based off of how they will affect others? I don't know the answer to that question for myself, but it's a nice inquiry to have. It is nice to think about what living your own life looks like, separate of what other people want the way that you're living your life to look like. I'm going to say that again because when somebody asked me this, it sank in and it changed my life. What could your life look like if your decisions were solely based off of what your authentic, true, real self decided, away from what other people, friends, family, parents, grandparents, outside of what they want your life that you are living to look like? Whew. I know that's heavy shit, especially for my fellow people pleasers out there. I know that's heavy, but what does it look like? Just imagine. Maybe take a moment to imagine what that kind of joy would feel like, what that kind of freedom would look like outside of the judgment of others. What does your life look like? A life that you want to claim, a life that you want to take space up in. And I plan to unpack that a bit more in January and add some context of my life to that and be a little bit more vulnerable around that posed question to you. And we'll get there. But it's about that time that I want to wrap up. So I want to leave you with two things. We'll close with some breathing, because I saw some people in the past 3 weeks who were like, oh yeah, I've been watching your episodes and I was doing the breathing with you. And that just that melted my heart, because breathing is a thing that we are doing all day, but to do it intentionally and to breathe with one another, like, it's a really special, electric, magnetic practice of truly being intentional and receiving renewal. So I want to close out with some breath work, which we'll do in a minute. But the other thing I want to leave you with, other than the other inquiry, I want to leave you with an inquiry that my brother had brought up to me last night when I drove him to the airport to go to New York for one of his upcoming projects. Side note, my brother is a videographer. He's incredible at what he does. We do a lot of projects together. We just finished a project for a friend of mine who just got engaged. So Eliza and Alexis, shout out. Congratulations on your beautiful engagement. I'm so thankful to have been a part of it, to be able to decorate it and bring it to life for you. I love you. I don't know what life would look like without the connection that we have. I'm so thankful that our paths have crossed. My brother videoed their beautiful proposal. So if you follow me on social media, you will see it soon. But my brother, digital creator extraordinaire, videographer, brilliance. We're driving to San Antonio last night, literally this morning, 3 a.m., trying to get him to the airport for his 5 a.m. flight to New York with his friends, with his rad people group who are expanding in New York this week and spending New Year's there and networking. And I'll get into that good stuff next episode of just sharing what he is doing. He inspires my life. He had said on our drive out there that him and his friends had been reflecting on a posed question in looking back on the year that had just happened and what their life practice looked like this year. And he said that they were just chewing on, inquiring with this posed question of what in your life became familiar this year. And however you just received that is how you received it. Whether that word familiar lands as supportive to your life or not supportive to your life, that is for you to run with. But what this year did you become familiar with? We will dive into that next episode of what that conversation with my brother looked like. Really beautiful insight. And I leave it here today with you so that you can chew on that as we go into this last week of 2024. What this year in your life did you become familiar with? And I invite you to explore the word familiar and how you relate to it. Thank you. Thank you for your presence today. I want to end this episode with breathwork. And after breathwork, I'll close this episode with the way that I have been closing my yoga practices. So if you'll join me, we will just sit up tall. Maybe you move your buttocks flesh from your sit bones so you can really ground down through your sit bones. Maybe your legs are crossed and you're seated, or maybe you're watching this at your desk at work, so maybe your feet are just on the ground. Wherever you want to do this, I invite you to close your eyes. Just maybe bring your eyes to a soft gaze. Maybe you do this portion later today before you go to bed. But as you drop into your body, think of an experience in your life that gave you an extreme sense of felt joy. Can we breathe into that experienced felt joy and allow it to expand, allow it to grow? That experience of felt joy, allow it to drop into your field of awareness. Breathe air into it through your nose, allow it to expand, hold. Exhale out through the nose. Allow the chest to settle as you exhale. We'll go ahead and breathe in. Receive air through the nose. Expand that felt joy. Hold. Exhale through the nose. Inhale through the nose. Hold and sense that felt joy, that core memory. Exhale through the nose. Breathe in through pursed lips, straw lips. Hold. Sip in more air. Expand. And then release through the nose. Wonderful. Let go of the tension that might be in the jaw, behind the ears, and the temples. We'll go ahead and breathe in again through the mouth, through pursed lips. Hold. Remember that joy. Don't leave it behind. Exhale out through the mouth. Releasing any tension, any gripping into the nose. Hold. Out the mouth. Release. Into the nose last time. Lock in your joy. Hold the breath in. Exhale out through the mouth. As we come back into our field of awareness of what's happening in the room, what's happening where you're at, let's go ahead and breathe in one more breath into the nose. Swallow. Breathe out through the mouth. I hope that you are well. And I hope that together this year we can challenge ourselves where we are at to get where we are going. We can allow ourselves to be, exist, and do to the capacity in which we are ready to be, exist, and do. And not throw ourselves around hoping to please others, but really leaning into what feeds our own selves and what nourishes our existence. Can we do that? I hope we can do that. So, with all the words being said, all the thoughts being had, without overthinking, without wanting to apply all of this right now so we can make a change in the life, let's just hold grace for how beautiful our lives are, the way that they are, and how much beauty is out there for us to claim, with some things that we want to bring into our toolbox as we show up for ourselves. Thank you for watching episode 3 of Metta Monday, and I can't wait to connect with you again. To close this episode, I'm going to bring my hands together at the center of my heart and say that I just want to hold a prayerful thanks of your sound mind, your able body, and your compassionate heart. Namaste. See you next time. Have a beautiful Monday.